So, I'm sure you're all familiar with the classic Bionicle designs. Tahu with his fiery elemental powers, Gali with her aquatic hooks, Onua with his hunched subterranean design. But imagine, if you will, that we had the power to change those elements. Imagine we could make Tahu the Tower of Water, or Gali the Tower of Fire. How would we do it? Why would we do it? Surely only a madman would attempt an act of such unspeakable, reckless depravity. Well, luckily for you, I am that madman. But I'm not alone in my quest to subvert the colours of popular characters. If you've ever played a Pokemon game before, you probably know about shiny Pokemon, special coloured monsters that can be encountered during play. These shinies are functionally identical to their regular versions, but their rarity, combined with their eye-catching new colours, makes them very desirable. And that's pretty much what we're going to be attempting here, Shiny Toa. The same heroes we know and love, in bold new colours. As for how we're going to be doing it, well, we won't be using paint, or dye for that matter. That would make things too easy. Nope, the only pieces we're going to be using for this nefarious experiment are of the genuine LEGO variety, plucked straight from official LEGO sets. And if you're wondering how that's going to work, it's all thanks to some crafty mould reusage by our Danish overlords. You see, just like the humble LEGO brick itself, those classic Toa parts can be found in a bunch of different colours. Add to that the recoloured Kanoe masks from the 2001 mask packs, and things start to get really spicy. So, that's the background to this unholy little experiment, but we don't want to get too carried away. So, before we get started, we're going to need to lay down a few ground rules. Rule number 1, only genuine LEGO. No paint, no dye, no 3D printing, nada. Just standard pieces from the existing LEGO library. Rule number 2, keep to the established colour palettes, so red and orange for fire, white and grey for ice, and so on. If a part doesn't exist in a suitable colour, no substitutions. And finally, rule number 3, keep as much to the original build as possible. If the design moves too far from the character's original silhouette, it doesn't count. Simple. And now that the rules are in place, it's time to begin. First up, it's Tahu, Tower of Fire. His signature sword comes in 4 delicious flavours, but one of those is just a slight variation on his standard red one, so that only leaves us with 2 new colours to try. And we're going to kick things off with black. Yes, with that black sword, a black Kanoe How, and some body parts donated from Onua, Tahu here can take the role of Tower of Earth and head underground. I'm not sure what he'd do down there exactly, except maybe hang out in caves, but his black Kanoe How with those green eyes behind looks amazing. The black sword only comes in one set, 4748 from the Alpha Team series, Ogle's Mountain Fortress. It's quite an expensive set, but you do get 6 of the black swords, so plenty of spares to play around with. Which means you could build a Shadow Tahu too. He's basically a canon but unreleased evil version of Tahu, so what are you waiting for? Anyway, if you don't like the idea of Tahu being the Tower of Earth, how about the Tower of Water? His sword came in light blue with set 8975, Berix. It's a bit of a cheat, since the sword should be in a darker shade of blue to match his body, but it still looks good. And sure, a flame sword isn't much use underwater, but there are other elements he could represent. Gas burns with a blue flame, for example. Perhaps this version of Tahu is the Tower of Gas. Either way, the blue How of Aqua Tahu shakes things up nicely, replacing the transparent blue of Gali's regular Cow and giving those yellow eyes a chance to really shine through. Because none of the 2001 Toa wear a mask of this colour by default, opaque blue feels a bit more special than some of the other colours, especially on an iconic mask like this one. And if you really want to embrace Tahu's new underwater abilities, or if the light blue simply bothers you for being a bit off-brand, you could switch the sword out for this one from Exoforce. Sure, it's not technically a Bionicle piece, but it's the right scale and the right colour, and let's be honest, those flames were never going to work underwater anyway. So that's it for Tahu. Unfortunately his sword doesn't come in anything resembling green or white, and as for brown, well, we need to address the elephant in the room there, because none of the Toa weapons exist in brown. Heck, even Pohatu, Toa of Stone himself, doesn't come with brown accessories. In fact, it's impossible to build any alternate Toa in brown, because even if suitable weapons did exist, the tan arm piece used by 5 of the 6 Toa doesn't. Pohatu doesn't include one, since his action feature is based around his legs, and it's never been released anywhere else. Anyway, from the Toa of Fire, we're heading to the Toa of Water. Yes, it's Gali's turn. Her signature claw comes in a whole bunch of colours, so we have a few different options for Shiny Gali now that Tahu has stolen her job beneath the waves. So, what's first? Well, the obvious answer is to drop her into Tahu's old role as Toa of Fire. Here she is, rocking a nice fiery colour scheme. Those red hooks can be found in 2 other sets, both Bionicle, 10023 Master Builder, and 8538 Moaka and Kanira. The trans-red Cow comes from the 2001 mask packs, and up close you can see how nice it looks with Gali's new pink eyes shining through. Honestly, the Cow is an amazing mask, and it's unique in that it comes in 8 colours instead of the usual 6, so there are plenty of options to play around with. There's also the option of a neon orange one too. This Cow is technically meant for Pohatu, but I think it works a lot better here, playing into the burning molten metal look. I can really imagine this Fire Gali swimming through a field of lava near a volcano or something. But fire isn't Gali's only option, far from it. her claws and mask come in black too, so just like Tahu, she can moonlight as Toa of Earth. Adding water to Earth makes mud, so I guess that would make her Toa of Mud? Unfortunately, those hooks are quite rare in black, only appearing in one set, and it's a bit of an obscure one at that. 4093, the Wild Wind-Up. And even then the set only includes one, so if you really want a Mud Gali, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. Especially if you want a Shadow Gali too, which brings the total you need up to 4. Ouch. Still, Mud Gali looks great in her new black and grey colour scheme, and up close you can get a better look at those green eyes shining through the trans-black Cow. The shade of green used for Onua's eyes always seemed a bit too dark in my opinion, and they tend to get lost in the shadow behind his mask. At least here the clear plastic of the Cow helps them shine through a bit more. And if you don't like the thought of a muddy Gali, how about an icy one? Yes, those hooks come in white too, thanks to a couple of other Bionicle sets, 8539, the Manners, or 8549, Tarakava. I really like how Gali looks in white, and she would definitely be right at home swimming in frosty Arctic water or battling through icebergs. Unfortunately, the Transclear Cow is one of the harder masks to track down, but it's definitely worth the effort. That unique crystal clear appearance sets it apart from any of the other masks out there, and it really does look amazing. Still, if you can't track down the clear one, you could always settle for the cheaper light blue option. Ah, did I say cheaper? Sorry, no, it's even rarer, normally hitting triple figures when it goes up for sale. But the frosty blue colour does still fit with the icy feel, and it looks great on display. And yes, if you were counting, that means we're up to 4 different versions of Gali. You can kind of get away with building a green one too, if you don't mind using a couple of lime green hooks which are available in set 4586, Stunt Racetrack. But as with Tahu, brown is a no-go. Gali needs not 1 but 2 of those non-existent tan sword arms, and her hooks don't come in brown either. So we've seen what Tahu and Gali look like with their elements switched. Next up is Onua, Toa of Earth. Or should I say Toa of Ice? Yes, we're flipping his colour scheme all the way to the other end of the spectrum, replacing those traditional black parts for shiny new white. The white claws come in several different sets, including 8548 Nui Jaga and 8558 Kadok and Gadok. And of course the mask is from the 2001 mask packs. White is definitely a great new look for Onua, and it's not difficult to imagine him digging his way through snowdrifts and icy tunnels. The white Pakari is the complete opposite of his usual black one, and the lighter colour really highlights all those little vents and grooves that tend to get a bit lost in the original. You can kind of get away with a red Onua too, if you don't mind using orange claws. Actual red claws are basically non-existent outside of an obscure prototype Nuirama, while the orange ones are fairly easy to get hold of thanks to the release version of the same set. Which also includes a pair of lime green claws, so there's your chance to make a green Onua too. Although I can't really imagine Onua swinging through the treetops. And that's it, no blue and of course no brown. So, next up, Kopaka. This guy is a bit more tricky since he needs 2 different accessories to complete the look, his sword and his shield, plus he needs a specialised limb piece for his shield arm. To start things off, we've got a black Kopaka, or Koblaka if you will. This is probably the easiest of the shiny Kopakas to pull together. The black shield is just a system piece, and it comes in plenty of sets, so isn't too difficult to track down. The sword only comes in one other set though, which is 7136, the Skral from Bionicle Stars in 2010. You'll also need a dark grey limb piece for his shield arm as well, which you can borrow from Rock Slicer or one of the Rakshi. And as for the close-up, well, his mask, the Akaku, looks great in black. But I mentioned earlier how the dark green eyes often feel just a bit too dark. Especially here with that single tiny eye slit, you're basically not going to see them. At least if you go full black and build a shadow Kopaka, the brighter eyes have a bit more chance of shining through. Next up, blue! And this is where things start to get a bit trickier, because although Kopaka's shield comes in basically any colour you want, his sword is a bit more limited. This is standard white, there's black, there's silver, which is really cool, but not a colour we can use for 2001 Toa, and there's sort of a rusty orange. No red, no green, no blue, and of course no brown. But we're not going to give up that easily. Remember the sword we used for Aqua Tahu? Well, it works great for Kopaka. In fact, it probably works better for Kopaka than it does for Tahu, since the blade is a much better match for Kopaka's aesthetic. The blue piece used for his shield comes in 2 slightly different versions, one being more common, but limited to sets from the 80s and early 90s, and the other being a bit more rare, but technically more accurate to the one Kopaka actually comes with. But since the only difference between the 2 pieces is how they accommodate system brick attachments around the back, either version works for Kopaka. Oh, and you'll also need a light blue limb piece for his shield arm. Although this piece originated in the Slicer series, or Throwbots if you prefer, none of those sets make use of it in the right colour. So if you're liking this blue Kopaka, you'll want to check out the blue Visorak, Bogarak, who comes with 2 of them. As for red Kopaka, well, we're going to cheat again. This time we're pulling a sword from LEGO's short-lived Knight's Kingdom series. It's a bit of a weird shape, but it's the right colour and scale, and still kind of has those biomechanical design elements that we need. The red shield comes in just 2 sets, 6479, Emergency Response Centre from 1998, or 5980, Squidman's Pit Stop from 2009. And his shield arm can, once again, only be found in a Visorak set, this time the red one, Votorak, who includes 2 of them. Just make sure you keep the other one safe, because we'll be needing it for a Fire Gali, who we'll be looking at shortly. As for this shiny Kopaka's mask, the red Akaku was only ever available in, yep, you've guessed it, the 2001 Konoe packs. Well, that's not entirely true. Special masks could occasionally be found in other Bionicle media, like card game decks or alarm clocks. But anyway, wherever this one came from, it looks great in red. So, 4 down, 2 to go. It's Liwa's turn now, and this is where we start running into problems, because Liwa's signature weapon, his honking great axe, has never appeared in any other colours. Heck, it's not even appeared in any other sets. So, if you want a shiny Liwa, you're going to need to build that axe for yourself. A black axe isn't too difficult. You'll need an axle for the shaft, a connector of some kind to approximate the thickness near the handle, and then a few extra Technic pieces for the blade. There. But if we're customising, why don't we give him an upgrade? After all, he's going to need some extra firepower for digging all those tunnels underground. Fire Liwa is a similar story, although axle pieces are a bit harder to track down in red than they are in the much more common black. He's also going to need one of those orange limb pieces from Visorak Votorak, the same one that Fire Kopaka uses for his shield arm. Still, I think the end result is worth the extra trouble, and the Miru looks amazing in red. Heck, it looks amazing in any colour, all the Gen 1 masks are super well designed. And then rounding off the shiny Liwas, it's Ice Liwa. Yep, if we're sticking to official LEGO axles for his axe, we're limited to black, red, white, and then a few other random colours. No blue, and annoyingly no brown, which would have been our one chance to build someone other than Pohatu in brown. Unfortunately, I got so carried away trying to find parts for a white axe that I completely forgot about the connector he needs for his hand, which doesn't exist in white anyway, so I ended up completely breaking the rules on this one. Whoops! Let's zoom in a bit to hide all the mistakes. Yeah, look at that lovely white Miru. And then finally, Pohatu, our one and only brown tower. Yep, if you have somehow missed all the hints I've been dropping, this guy is, and apparently always will be, the one and only Gen 1 tower able to control the element of stone. Yet even that claim to fame isn't enough to satisfy the mighty Pohatu. Even after denying us a tan sword arm to make other brown tower, he still stubbornly refuses to give us the parts we need to play around with his own colour scheme. Although his foot pads have been used in a couple of other sets, like this Slave 1 here, they still basically only exist in tan or silver from his regular or Nuva versions respectively. Tower of stone, more like Tower of selfishness. Look at him there with his upside down body and pointless arms. Thinks he's so special. Still, it's not a completely lost cause, because if you squint a little bit, those silver bits kind of look like grey, which we need for a shiny white Pohatu. So, here we go, Pohatu, Tower of Ice. Take that, you smug. You can even get his rock accessory in white as well. Or how about this nice frosty trans blue one for him to kick around? And here he is up close with that nice white Kakama, the Mask of Speed. Is it just me, or does he look a bit angry? And as a final bonus, here's a Mud Nakama to go with the Mud Gali from earlier. Nakama ends up being the only shiny Turaga you can build, since the Turaga accessories didn't see quite as much reuse as the Toa weapons. But her trident comes in both black and dark grey, so she makes a nice companion for Gali. Anyway, that's it for the shiny tower. Which one was your favourite? Mine's going to be the cool Ice Gali, or maybe Fire Gali, or maybe Aqua Tahu? Anyway, let me know down below, along with any other Bionicle thoughts and stories you'd like to share. And of course, you can help me out by clicking that like, and maybe even subscribing to the channel for more Bionicle content. Maybe next time we can throw some dye into the equation and get some really crazy shinies going. Anyway, until then, ta-ta!